Okay, guys, so today I got a really good one. I took my time on this MythLab, right? Because that's how much I care about you guys. Every day, I'm going to come over here and we're going to talk about some mythology from the heart, like from the rip. And every day, I want to give you guys something new. And if you've noticed, what I've been doing is putting these gods together in putting these guys together in triads, right? Even though they're not technically triads in the traditional sense, it's three gods together, and hey, that's good enough for me. So if you guys want to come in, this is a good time. I got my monitor system up here, so I'm watching the comment sections. I'm gonna let you guys know. Ask any questions about mythology, guys. About mythology. Let's not get into crazy stuff, right? Okay, so today, what I wanted to get into was talking about the mothers of monsters. And I say the mothers of monsters. And I'm trying to give us a little bit of time, let a few people get in here before we really get into it. But you can always join late, right? So we're going to talk about this. And so when I talk about the mothers of monsters, because there's three of them, and like the main three that I want to talk about are these three up above us. We got Greek myth and Echidna, we got Tiamat, and we got Angrboda, right? And now we're talking about three different mythology systems because now we've got Greek, we've got Sumerian or Mesopotamian, and we have Norse. That's what we really get out of these three here. So it's a great mythology because really what we're seeing is the creation of the same archetype, similar archetypes across mythologies over thousands, a couple of thousand-year period. And there's some commonalities with each one of them and some big differences, right? And the first thing I'll point out is, they all created monsters that had very specific reasons. And the monsters, like the children that they bear out, are even more like insane than what they are, right? You obviously have a dragon, you have like Echidna. Now she's noted for having the upper part of a woman and the lower part of obviously a snake. Tiamat, obviously we know in this reptile form, and then we see Angrboda in this form. Like basically she's a giantess, right? So you have a I don't know what Echidna comes from like an older time. So Echidna, excuse me, is I believe like the daughter of Gaia and Tartarus. So she may represent the heavenly, the upper, or at least the middle, and the lower kingdom, right? Now, Tiamat, of course, this is the big one out of the group, right? This is the biggest and the baddest and the illest, right? Because she's cosmic scale. She literally is the abyss, right? She is the abyss. Like, she is one of the first beings, per Mesopotamian mythology, she's one of the first beings to exist, period, right? And so all the gods and everyone actually come from her. So those are her children. But her problem was that, you know what? I'm really tired of you guys, right? Like, this is really what jumped it off. And I'm going to get into the timeline of it. But essentially, her problem was shut up. I'm not joking with you guys. Like, the new gods, the new kids, they were like, she had a husband, she had a consort, and her consort was like, these kids are driving me crazy. So you know what? Let's kill them all. And the kids were like, and they struck back. So it was a retaliation. So once that happened, and they killed Tiamat's consort, as far as she was concerned, she was like, F them kids. And she was all about her man. So that launched a war that would culminate in her demise, right? Like the kids win, right? I think it's not Enkidu, but Marduk, excuse me. Marduk is the one who they send out there to handle that business. So ultimately, Tiamat ends, and that's actually the start of their civilization, or the start of the new cosmology, right? Is that they have to kill the old gods, get rid of mom and pops. This is a new hardware store that we're running, and it's no longer and Sons. This is no longer Sanford and Sons, right? Sanford and Son. This is just Sanford, right? We got rid of the son because I'm not the son anymore. I'm the dude running it. So that's what went down there. Now, Echidna, she's more a genealogy, right? Echidna makes like all the monsters in Greek mythology come from her. She's the mother of all the major monsters, and we're going to talk about that because she's tied into every single one of the hero stories in some way, like almost all of them, right? I mean, I'm sure it's not every single one of them, but it's in a good deal of them. Now, Angrboda, now she's very different because what she is, she's prophecy. She's tied to Ragnarok, and her children, and we'll talk about her children, are all the beings that you need for Ragnarok to go down. So we're talking about the serpent, like the giant serpent, the world eater serpent who kills Thor. We're talking about Fenrir Wolf, who is, Fenrir is the wolf who's going to eat Odin, and also Hel, the deity who runs their underworld when you didn't die in glorious battle. Which, if you're there, you got to die in glorious battle, right? I don't care. You cannot get drunk on some mead and slip down the stairs and die that way because you're not going to make it to Valhalla, which is where you want to be. And Valhalla is just so you can fight at the end again. There's no reward, right? You would think you get a reward going to Valhalla, but you don't. What you do is they give you another roof, right? If you don't get that reference, I'll explain it to you at some other time. But the important thing is that we're seeing a repeating mythology, a repeating archetype as the mother. That's really what's important. Like that chaos has always been, the mother is chaos. The mother never gets erased in any of this stuff, except for Tiamat. They do erase. Tiamat gets split in half, which I know sounds really bad, but she's a cosmic being. And what comes out of that is she becomes both the sky and the earth. So she doesn't go away. She is actually repurposed, right? Like that's actually what happens with her. Echidna's, all her children get killed, right? All of her children die. That's the story of every one of her kids, right? And a lot of her kids now, it's funny because Echidna's kids are hardworking kids. Every single one of them has a job. Like most of them work in security. You probably know Sybaris, right? That's one of her offspring. So she had a lot of kids that worked in security. One of her kids protects the golden apples. So they weren't even monsters for the sake of just being monsters. They had a mythological importance. How they look, obviously we see the difference, and I talked briefly about that, but now I got to stick to my notes, because if I don't go off my notes, I'll miss all kinds of stuff, right? But Tiamat, of course, is the dragon form, and I don't know if we ever see Tiamat represented in any other forms other than like the dragon form, right? This is what she is, like all the time, right? And then, of course, the other two are more half. So, and with Echidna, obviously she represents that serpent side, and there's a reason for that. Now, temporal, and we'll go through the timeline on these ladies, right, later. But Tiamat comes about during the Bronze Age. Echidna comes from early Greek mythology, and Angrboda is about medieval Norse preservation. This is where she comes up. So very different eras, very different geography, but kind of the same myth. And this is what makes it more culturally compelling and relevant, because these aren't myths that were borrowed back and forth. That's not what happened. Each one of these deities is developed in their own area, in their own timeline, with slightly different meanings to them. I know the outcome is the same as a bunch of bad kids, and trust me, I know a lot about bad kids. I have a big family. There's some bad kids in my family, and I hope none of them are listening right now. I kind of hope you guys are listening right now, right? Because it doesn't matter. In fact, I know those bad kids are not listening right now. So let's talk about, let's break them down. So Tiamat comes from the Enuma Elish, and this is their mythic tale for Mesopotamian culture. She produces a host of chaotic beings that fight all the younger gods. Now, among the creatures that she makes, she has giant serpents, because they all don't have names. There's a bunch of them. So everybody doesn't get a name. I don't know if she didn't name them or if mythology never wrote a name for them. But these guys are not named. She creates serpent beings. She creates dragon beings, of course. She creates horned serpents, which to me, it's like a dragon. Furious vipers, scorpion men, which I wish I had seen some scorpion men show up over here. That actually would have been a real treat for me, right? But she also produces other creatures. So she has fishmen, bullmen, and even storm demons. So that's a lot. And she takes Kinju as her new champion, and in some tales, consort. and she gives him the Tablet of Destinies, which is extremely powerful, a relic, right? It gives him just command of all types of knowledge. So this is where she elevates him in a war against her own children. Against her own children. Let's not forget this is decided because her baby daddy was basically like, look, I am tired of these kids, right? And I think an important thing when we talk about the baby daddies, like Angrboda, and we'll get into it individually, but all of them have one baby daddy. A lot of kids, but there's not multiple baby daddies going on here, right? This is one baby daddy line. Okay. So Echidna, and Echidna is identifiably like probably the best out of the mothers of monsters because the bulk of her kids had jobs, right? She had Orthrus, Suberus, the Hydra, the Chimera, the Lynx, the Nemean Lion, Ladon, and then the Caucasian Eagle. This is the eagle that torments Prometheus. So let's go through this lineup of who her kids are, right? So Orthrus is another two-headed dog. And this is the brother of Sybaris. I never knew that. Now, he is the guardian. So again, right? They could call this Echidna security systems. He is the guardian of the cattle of Geryon. So he appears in different mythologies. He's ultimately killed by Hercules during the 10th labor that he has to perform because he's there to steal the cattle, right? So this is a problem. So he's one of the earliest guardian beasts that we hear about. Multi-headed dog, structurally a monster. He still exists, and he has great importance because of the lineage that he comes from. Ladon is the serpent dragon who guards the golden apples of Hesperides. So his primary role is an eternal guardian of the fruit that's ultimately tied to Hera, right? He's also killed by Hercules, right? You see this here? There's a lot going on. He's also killed by Hercules. So Hercules, you've already got, like Hercules, man, Echidna, you really should have some beef with Hercules, right? So her other children, of course, include Sybaris, then the Hydra, who I also believe was killed by Hercules, the Chimera, the Sphinx, and the Nemean Lion, who I know the Nemean Lion was killed by Hercules, right? So she's got like 4 or 5, like out of the kids you have, man, she had 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 children. Hercules' body's at least 4 of them, at minimum, because I don't know what happened to some of the other ones. But I'm going to say he obviously gets Orthus, he gets the Hydra, he gets the Nemean Lion, and it sounds like he gets Cerberus. You guys can correct me on that one if you want to check that one out. But at any rate, like, and then he walks around with one of your son's hides on like you didn't even think. Like when he kills the Nemean Lion, he walks around with his like fur and his head on as his calling card. So I don't know how Echidna was feeling about that. She never seemed to come out with any beef, but I can't believe that she didn't. Then Angrboda. Now Angrboda has the least amount of children, but every single one of these guys is a menace on a whole different level, right? You got the Fenrir wolves, who we even saw the Fenrir wolf. Like we've seen these, except for the snake. It's odd that they didn't show us the giant snake in the Marvel Thor adaptations. But you see Fenrir, you see Hel, and you see how powerful they are. These are 2 of her primary children. And then the Midgard serpent. I can't say the name. Gormungand. Gormungander, right? I believe Gormungander is his government name, right? Gormungander. And all these guys are extremely impactful in the Norse cosmology. Every single one of them absolutely matters all the way to the end. And I mean all the way to the end, because every single one of them plays a role in Ragnarok. And maybe Hel doesn't. I don't know if Hel, I think she unleashes like her soldiers as a part of it. So every single one of them is about Ragnarok. And if you guys know the Norse, they are obsessed with Ragnarok. I'm telling you, man. If you go back, somebody's going to want to talk to you about Ragnarok, right? But Fenrir is the one who kills Odin. The snake is the one who kills Thor, or poisons the sky and Thor dies. And then, of course, Hel unleashes all her deadly arms. The whole point is that Asgard is going to take that L. Asgard takes that L. This is destiny. It is predestined who's going to end up getting this L. So we see a lot of overlap. And you can see like the magnitude of the children that are coming from these three wombs, right? These cosmic level beings, ultimate monsters. These are like the core of a lot of mythologies. But I wanted to see where they came in timeline wise. So I built a timeline for you guys. This is going to be a great listen. I'm going to break this down as we're going through it, but this is some information I have up on my other site, which is Myth Archives. If you want to hear this stuff without me yapping all over it, right, you're free to go there and check it out. But I do ask, why do you want to hear it without me yapping? I'm just saying, it sounds very personal on your part, directed at me. So let's start this off, this timeline that I put together just for you guys, not for anybody else.
Archive entry. The mother of monsters. Chronological archive read. Tiamat, Echidna, and Angrboda. 3000 BCE. Sumer. Tiamat is venerated in early Mesopotamian cosmogonies as a primordial sea goddess.
Yeah, very important. Obviously, the oldest of the cultures was the first one to talk about it. So 3000 BCE. So we're saying from now, this is 5,000 years ago. And sometimes I have to just be staggered. Look, I forget stuff from my childhood, like all the time, right? So for us to hang on to a myth story for over 5,000 years is pretty amazing that we're still talking about Tiamat. And she's still appearing and stuff.
Category: Religion, Mythology. Type: Mythological text. Meaning: this is an early trace of a saltwater chaos goddess whose body represents the primordial abyss, with roots older than later Babylonian framing.
So very important mythology, like that gets started with the Mother of Monsters theme.
This entry anchors the Mother of Monsters thread in the record. 1900 BC.
Now this is a huge gap, right? So we've lost 1,100 years. Nobody else had any activity. So Tiamat was the only one sitting at the boardroom by herself, a Mother of Monsters.
CE. Babylon. The Enuma Elish is composed, placing Tiamat in conflict with the younger gods.
This is one of the best mythologies coming out of Sumeria, Mesopotamia. And this is a great battle. It's a cosmic scale battles, and this is the realignment of leadership and the rulership of the cosmos, of the heavens in this particular story. And she loses, by the way. Spoiler alert.
Category: Religion, Mythology. Type: Epic myth. Meaning: this fixes Tiamat as a personification of chaos opposing the divine assembly in a major creation narrative. This entry anchors the Mother of Monsters thread in the record. 1800 BCE. Babylon. Mythic tradition develops that Marduk uses Tiamat's body to construct heaven and earth.
So this is a long, we're looking at 100 years between the tellings of the mythology, but the same outcome. The killer uses her body to build the rest of the world.
Category: Cosmology. Type: Religious cosmology. Meaning: Tiamat's defeat becomes the mechanism that turns chaotic waters into a structured cosmos, encoding the pattern of order drawn from chaos.
So again, what he's bringing is order, right, to all creation.
BCE. Scandinavia. Angrboda is preserved in oral Norse tradition. Category: Religion.
Now she's finally on the scene, Angrboda, the second one of this triad to come in. But we're seeing like a huge period of time, almost 1,500 years, between the inception of Tiamat all the way to Echidna.
Mythology. Type: Oral tradition. Meaning: this is part of the pre-Christian myth cycle and connects Angrboda to the end times framework that culminates in Ragnarök. This entry anchors the Mother of Monsters thread in the record. 700 BCE. Ancient Greece. Hesiod writes Theogony, including Echidna's genealogy. Category: Religion, Mythology.
And I think, like I said, I think she's like the daughter of Gaia and Tartarus. I think is the most accepted version of her genealogy.
Literary source. Meaning: this is the earliest surviving written reference that establishes Echidna's lineage and positions her as a mother of major monsters. This entry anchors the Mother of Monsters thread in the record. 600 BCE. Mesopotamia. Neo-Babylonian recitations of the Enuma Elish occur in temples and New Year rites. Category:
So she's strong throughout, throughout the mythology. She stays strong.
Meaning: Tiamat remains active as a liturgical symbol of primordial chaos ritually overcome at the start of the sacred year. This entry anchors.
that kind of makes her obviously like a repetitive. Now she's repetitive, being traced to that period of time.
Echidna's monstrous lineage and designs. Category: religion, mythology. Type: literary reference. Meaning: this reinforces Echidna's role in Greek tradition through poetic retelling and cultural repetition. This entry anchors the mother of monsters thread in the record. 400 BCE.
Now this should
Greek
be
world.
the Greek
Greek
world
myth
still.
cycles consolidate hero monster genealogies. Category: religion, mythology. Type: myth consolidation. Meaning: Echidna's offspring become standardized obstacles in hero narratives, turning monster lineage into a recurring myth engine.
Yeah, this is a huge thing in Greek mythologies because the monsters are the heart of all the stories, and all the labors of Hercules are linked to some monster being destroyed. Even when you watch the Percy Jackson, they're kind of going through. At least I know that they did the Hydra and they did the Cyclops. I think they did a couple of ones that are also from Echidna's line of children.
This entry anchors the mother of monsters thread in the record. 300 BCE. Mesopotamia, Greek world. Chaos dragon motifs linked with Tiamat echo into Hellenistic myth and cosmology. Category: cross-cultural influence. Type: syncretic myth. Meaning: dragon and serpent imagery tied to chaos influences.
And I think dragons would always be tied to chaos, or at least the old. I mean, dragons over time have kind of evolved, but I think a lot of the earliest myths of dragons they were primarily about chaos, although it would change like later on to being intelligence and things like that.
Later cosmic beasts and amplifies the chaos monster pattern beyond a single text tradition. This entry anchors the mother of monsters thread in the record. 100 CE. Roman Greece. Apollodorus composes the Bibliotheca, including Echidna traditions. Category: religion, mythology. Type: literary compilation. Meaning: this systematizes Echidna and Typhon genealogies and preserves.
Typhon, that's her baby daddy. Now, Typhon himself is the storm, right? And Typhon actually rolls up. He pulls up to Olympus. He pulls up on Zeus, man. Like Typhon, that's how bad this dude was. He pulled up on Zeus at Zeus's crib, like what? And clearly he loses that battle, and that's Zeus's first like defending his own title, right? This is after the Titanomachy where he had to fight to get that title, like to be the Lord. But once he got it, he was often going to be challenged about it. So Typhon was the one who ultimately challenges Zeus.
Multiple variants in a durable reference form. This entry anchors the mother of monsters thread in the record. 100 CE. Roman Empire. Hyginus includes Echidna in fabulae. Category: religion, mythology. Type: myth compilation. Meaning: this expands Roman era mythographic tradition and preserves additional variant monster lists. This entry anchors the mother of monsters thread in the record. 100 CE. Eastern Mediterranean.
Mm.
Near Eastern chaos dragon patterns
So
filter
this is
into
still all the Greek, and you can see it's still just filtering chaos as the primary mover for dragons.
category: mythic legacy. Type: mythic transmission. Meaning: Tiamat's archetype survives indirectly as the dragon of chaos across later Jewish, Christian, Greco-Roman, and regional.
Wow, so Tiamat explodes into other mythologies beyond just the Mesopotamia. I hadn't considered that, although I do hear her reference as the Chaos Dragon in some older like Jewish texts. I'm aware of that. I didn't put those things together.
Stories, even when her name is not used. This entry anchors the mother of monsters thread in the record. 1200 CE. Iceland. The
Oh,
poetic Edda tradition.
so the Poetic Edda, this is of course like the crux of Norse mythology. So this is going to be our first time hearing about Angrboda. Huge gap of time. Like Tiamat is clearly like the real OG here, with Echidna coming secondary and Angrboda kind of being the newest on the set.
Is compiled in manuscript form, associated with the Codex Regius tradition. Category: religion, literature. Type: manuscript compilation. Meaning: this is a primary preservation pathway for Old Norse myth material in which monster's thread in the record. 1200 CE. Europe. European dragon lore develops the dragon as a symbol of chaos and evil.
So again, this is kind of be the bleed over from Tiamat, obviously.
Category: folklore religion. Type: folkloric symbolism. Meaning: even without direct naming, the logic of a dragon opposed to divine order persists and becomes culturally dominant through Christianized legend frameworks. This entry anchors the mother of monsters thread in the record. 1220 CE. Iceland. Snorri Sturluson writes the Prose Edda. Category: religion literature.
And this would be the second leg of Norse mythology. And this is where they kind of really fill in a lot of the stories that didn't go from the initial thrust. But they've done a great job preserving Norse mythology. They have some great stories in their mythology compilation.
Type: literary documentation. Meaning: this formalizes Angrboda's relationship to Loki and documents the central monster lineage that connects to Ragnarok.
So again, with her, Loki is the father of all of her children, all three of them. And it's not so much romance as this is an alignment. Now, the important thing is that remember, he's a Jotun and she's also a Jotun. And so these are two giants that come together to make all the children that would bring Asgard down. So that was kind of his role the entire time. And Loki gets a punishment. That's something that they talk about in the text is that Loki is punished. Remember, he gets bound like his children. They bind up Fenrir. They throw the snake out. You know, they don't really mess with Hel because she's too powerful. But the mothers never face any type of backlash for these children that they're birthing.
This entry anchors the mother of monsters thread in the record. 1500 CE.
So now we're deep in the Common Era.
In Europe, Renaissance mythographers revived classical monster genealogies. Category: cultural influence. Type: scholarly revival. Meaning: Echidna re-enters European intellectual tradition through classical revival, keeping the monster mother lineage visible to later scholarship. This entry anchors the mother of monsters thread in the record. 1800 CE. Europe. Classical scholarship formalizes Greek myth studies. Category: cultural influence.
So this is where Greek studies, like I don't know if we mentioned anyone else being studied in as depth before Greek mythology. So I think they're the first ones that became a real official study on its own.
Type: academic study. Meaning: Echidna becomes a subject of comparative mythology and
Right.
early archetypal interpretation as myth study becomes institutional. This entry anchors the mother of monsters thread in the record. 1800 CE. Germany, Scandinavia. Norse romantic revival movements expand public interest in Norse myth figures. Category: cultural revival. Type: mythological reinterpretation. Meaning: Angrboda and related Norse myth structures gain renewed visibility through modern cultural and scholarly re-engagement.
And they've still been evolving. I mean, it's crazy how this timeline is going to take us pretty much up to like modern day. I mean, I think we go to 2010 with references to
This
the
entry
three of these.
anchors the mother of monsters thread in the record. 1900 CE. Europe, United States. Archetypal and psychoanalytic readings of monstrous mother's rise. Category: modern interpretation. Type: myth analysis. Meaning: Echidna increasingly appears as a dark mother archetype inside symbolic and psychological frameworks, shifting her from genealogy to interpretation. This entry anchors the mother of monsters thread in the record.
Probably shouldn't have put that on every one.
1900 CE. Europe Global. Cuneiform discoveries and translations of the Enuma Elish reintroduced Tiamat to modern scholarship.
I remember this going down when they really started reinterpreting all those scrolls, and it's a ton of them. And the stories we started getting out of it and the information, man, it was groundbreaking.
Category: academia or theology. Type: textual rediscovery. Meaning: modern readers encounter Tiamat directly again.
And Tiamat, man, I mean, Tiamat's in, and I'm sure they'll talk about it. She's like, if you guys watch as a kid, if you're my age, and you watch that Dungeons and Dragons cartoon that came on Saturday mornings, that's Tiamat. The dragon they're talking about is Tiamat. And how much of the foundation of D&D is built off of dragons. And I think most of them are referencing her.
Fueling comparative mythology, theology, and pop reinterpretations. This entry anchors the Mother of Monsters thread in the record. 1950 CE, Europe, United States. Modern fantasy literature expands monster genealogies and myth retellings. Category: Modern literature. Type: Literary expansion. Meaning: monster mother figures gain increased narrative depth beyond brief
They're
classical or
they're
medieval source
so
material.
they're not losing any steam, right? 1950s, we're still talking about these three and that mother creator archetype.
This entry anchors the Mother of Monsters thread in the record. 1970 CE. Global. Fantasy authors and occult writers increasingly reference Tiamat by name.
Yeah, Tiamat gets a lot of ink, man. Like I said, even in cartoons, we are talking about you could have called her anything, but the guys who wrote this stuff know the mythology, and clearly they were really, really hype on Tiamat.
Category: Modern literature. Type: Fantasy occult reinterpretation. Meaning: Tiamat shifts from an academic reconstruction to an active chaos deity figure inside speculative fiction and modern occult systems. This entry anchors the Mother of Monsters thread in the record. 1990 CE. Global. Role-playing games and comic
Oh
books
yeah,
play Tiamat
yeah,
as a multi-headed dragon goddess or final boss figure. Category: Games, comics.
yeah. Video games has really done a lot for keeping mythology characters alive, and seeing Tiamat spoken about in video games is not surprising at all.
Type: Game comic adaptation. Meaning: This solidifies Tiamat as a mainstream Chaos Dragon archetype, especially through tabletop and video game ecosystems.
Yeah.
This entry anchors the Mother of Monsters thread in the record. 2000 CE.
Now we're getting to modern times.
Echidna appears in fantasy literature, games, and myth
Well, this is Echidna, so she strikes back with a little run of her own, right, in the 2000s.
retellings. Category: Modern media. Type: Cultural adaptation. Meaning: Echidna evolves into a fantasy serpent queen style figure beyond strict Greek context while retaining the monster mother function. This entry anchors the Mother of Monsters thread
And it
in the
does.
record. 2000 CE. Global. Modern reinterpretations in games and novels
Yeah.
expand
Yeah, they've been going
into
back through gods, man. Oh, this is Angrboda. Okay.
popular culture. Type:
Like, I know she appears, I think she appears in the Thor comic books. I don't remember ever reading myself. She's not translated into the movies at this point, but we'll see what they do going forward.
Pop culture adaptation. Meaning: Angrboda shifts from a minor text presence into a recognizable modern myth figure while her core role in the monster lineage remains intact. This entry anchors the Mother of Monsters thread in the record. 2010 CE.
Now, really modern times.
Films, series, and digital games reference or adapt Tiamat as an ultimate chaos entity. Category: Digital media.
Yeah.
Type: Screen adaptation. Meaning: a Bronze Age sea goddess continues as living myth through modern entertainment, fandom, and ongoing reinvention. This entry anchors the Mother of Monsters thread in the record. End of
So that was essentially 5,000 years of Mother of Monsters mythology. And it's great stuff, right? Because it shows us how these were kind of developing in different cultures. Obviously, we can see Mesopotamia got on it pretty quickly, and they represent the oldest myth. That would be Tiamat. Echidna comes to the Greeks. She's the Mediterranean entry into this. And then Norse, Germanic, and Iceland we get Angrboda. So we see three cultures who are kind of producing the same beings for slightly different reasons, right? One's about change, transmission, right, or transformation, I should say, from Tiamat being the ruler, right? That was all about a rulership change. Echidna, this is kind of the thrust of the Greek stories. This is where all the monsters, because the Greek stories like to measure their heroes against really big challenges. So they needed really good challenges to make all these deities as powerful and interesting as you want them to be. This is where a lot of the Hercules mystery is built. And then Angrboda, she is so central to Ragnarok at all point. And let's remember that her children, as far as moms go, her children go undefeated, right? They actually are able to achieve, every single one of them, achieve what their prophesized role in Ragnarok is, because Ragnarok is ultimately inevitable. So, great, I had a good time kind of going through each of these. I think I'm kind of locking in this format. I apologize if I was a little rough at some points, but you know how it is. I'm just kind of getting into a new format that I'm definitely going to stick with. So I would love to open it up. You guys can ask any questions in the comment section. But as always, I ask that you hit that like and subscribe. All the information. So I have profiles on every single one of these beings. When I throw this up, maybe I can throw it in the chat, or I don't know. I'll figure out a way to put it in the description. But you can go and read up on each one of these, and even the timelines you can get without hearing me yap all over it. Which, why you guys would want that, I don't know. But you guys are all different out there. So I'm gonna wrap it up, B. I had a really good time every day doing these myth labs, and I'm telling you, even as I'm doing them, I'm learning some stuff out of it myself. So I'm very impressed by what this is, and I hope you guys are going to be down with me as far as kind of building this community, talking about myths, talking about the stories that we love, how these characters endure over thousands of years, what it means as they enter into various formats. So just an interesting conversation. I hope you guys will participate in. But I will be back tomorrow. I don't know what I'm going to talk about tomorrow yet. But I may drop some clues later on the channel today. So at any rate, I will be back this evening for mythology at night. So if you guys enjoy mythology while you go to sleep, I got a nice calm, like I even do a dark background, so you don't have to worry about the bright lights waking you up. So this is really chill if you like to just lay in the bed and relax and fall asleep, listen to some cool mythology.